Hey, and welcome to Puzzlehead. This channel is all about engaging stories with clever twists, unexpected turns, and moments that will pull you in emotionally. So if you enjoy drama, surprises, and endings that truly hit, then you're in the right place. Subscribe and join us for stories full of secrets, intense moments, and satisfying outcomes. Now, don't forget to turn on notifications. The next puzzle is about to begin.
My marriage was built on trust, like a Jenga tower. Looks solid until someone's drunk enough to pull the wrong block. I'm Dr. Simon Arden, 41 years old, law professor at Northwestern, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew my wife. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday. I was grading papers in my home office when I heard Marta's phone buzz on the kitchen counter. She was upstairs showering, getting ready for another late client meeting. The phone buzzed again and again. "Honey, your phone's going crazy down here," I called up the stairs. "Just let it ring," she shouted back over the water. "It's probably work stuff." Work stuff. At 9:30 on a Tuesday night, sure. I went back to my papers, but the buzzing continued. 5 more times. Then it stopped. 10 minutes later, it started again. That's when I noticed the wine glass on my desk. Lipstick stain on the rim. Deep red, almost burgundy. Marta hated dark lipstick. Said it made her look like a vampire. This wasn't hers. I held the glass up to the light from my desk lamp. The lipstick was fresh, maybe an hour old. Someone had been in my office tonight, drinking my wine, sitting in my chair. "Simon?" Marta's voice drifted down from upstairs. "I'm heading out. Don't wait up." "Another client meeting?" I called back, still staring at the glass. "Yeah, big presentation tomorrow. Derek and I need to go over the numbers." Derek Graham, her business partner at the advertising agency. 34, drives a restored 1909 Mustang, wears suits that cost more than my monthly salary. The kind of guy who calls everyone buddy and thinks a firm handshake can solve world hunger. I heard the front door close, then Marta's BMW pulling out of the driveway. I sat back in my chair and looked around my office. Everything seemed normal except for that glass, and the faint smell of expensive cologne lingering in the air. Not mine. My phone rang. Alan Brewster, my colleague from the university. "Simon, you busy? Janet's making her famous lasagna, and we've got way too much food." "Thanks, but Marta's out on business. I should probably stay home." "Business on a Tuesday night?" I paused. "Yeah, big client." "Right." Alan's tone shifted slightly. "Well, offer stands if you change your mind." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet house and tried to piece things together. The glass, the cologne, the late meetings that had become more frequent over the past month. Marta's new habit of taking her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. I walked to the kitchen and opened the trash can. Buried under coffee grounds and yesterday's newspaper, I found a receipt from the Fairmont Hotel. Room service for 2, champagne and strawberries. Charged to room 1247, signed M. Arden. My hands started shaking. Not from anger, not yet. From the cold realization that my 20-year marriage was crumbling and I'd been too blind to see it. The phone rang again. This time it was Marta's cell, still sitting on the counter where she'd forgotten it. I stared at the screen. Derek, mobile, flashed across the display. Without thinking, I answered, "Marta, baby, you left your phone again." Derek's voice was smooth, personal. "I'm already missing you, and you just walked out of my apartment 5 minutes ago." My pulse went cold. "This isn't Marta," I said quietly. The line went dead. I set the phone down and walked back to my office. The wine glass was still there, mocking me with its burgundy stain. I picked it up and hurled it against the wall. It shattered into a dozen pieces, red wine splashing across my law books like a smear of betrayal. 20 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, a life built on what I thought was solid ground. Turns out the only thing more expensive than love is betrayal. Both come with room service. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my office until dawn, planning. Not revenge, not yet. Just information gathering. As a law professor specializing in forensic evidence, I knew the value of solid documentation. By 7 a.m., I had a plan. First, I drove to the university and pulled Derek's business registration from the public records database. Graham and Associates Marketing, founded 3 years ago. Partners, Derek Graham and one Victoria Castellano, His wife. Interesting. Derek was married too. Next, I called my old friend Marcus Chen, a private investigator who'd testified in several of my classes over the years. Simon, good to hear from you. What can I do for you? I need some background work done, discreetly. Marital problems? Something like that. We met for coffee at a diner near campus. Marcus was a small, wiry man with sharp eyes and the patience of a monk, perfect for surveillance work. I need to know where my wife goes during her client meetings, I told him. Times, places, who she's with, standard stuff. How long has this been going on? I'm not sure. Maybe a month, maybe longer. Marcus nodded. I'll need photos of both subjects and their vehicle information. I slid a manila envelope across the table. Everything's in there, including Derek's address and workplace. This Derek guy he married? Yes. Wife's name is Victoria. She's his business partner. Marcus whistled low. Messy. It's about to get messier. That evening I waited. Marta came home around 6, acting perfectly normal. She kissed my cheek, asked about my day, started dinner like nothing had happened. How was your meeting last night? I asked, watching her face carefully. Productive. We landed the Morrison account. She didn't even blink. 20 years of marriage and she could lie to my face without missing a beat. That's great, honey. Derek must be thrilled. He is. We're celebrating tomorrow night. Another late meeting, I'm afraid. Of course you are. She looked at me sharply. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just seems like you've been working a lot of late nights recently. It's a competitive business, Simon. Not everyone gets tenure and a guaranteed paycheck. The barb hit home, as she'd intended, but I just smiled. You're right, I'm lucky to have such job security. The next night, I followed Marcus's advice and stayed home, let him do the surveillance work while I maintained plausible deniability. Around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text message. Got them, Fairmont Hotel, room 1247, same room as your receipt. Want photos? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, yes. 10 minutes later, my phone chimed with incoming photos. Marta and Derek entering the hotel lobby. Derek's hand on her lower back. Another shot of them in the elevator, Derek whispering something in her ear while she laughed. The final photo was a gut punch. Marta and Derek exiting the hotel 3 hours later. Her hair was messed up, lipstick gone. Derek's shirt was wrinkled, his tie missing. They looked like exactly what they were. I forwarded the photos to my laptop and studied them carefully. Clear faces, readable timestamps, public location, perfect evidence. But evidence for what? A divorce? I could take these photos to a lawyer tomorrow and have papers filed by the end of the week. Split our assets, fight over custody of Ross and Amelia, spend the next 2 years in bitter legal battles. Or I could do something more creative. I opened my laptop and started researching Derek's business. Graham and Associates had an active social media presence, complete with staff photos and client testimonials. I found their company newsletter, employee directory, even their office Christmas party pictures from last year. Derek and Victoria looked happy in those photos. High school sweethearts who'd built a business together, married 15 years, no kids. Victoria handled the financial side while Derek schmoozed clients. I wondered if Victoria knew about Derek's extracurricular activities. My phone rang. It was Marta, calling from her forgotten cell phone. Hi, honey. Just wanted to let you know I'll be even later tonight. We're having some technical difficulties with the presentation. Technical difficulties? Computer problems. You know how it is. Right. Well, don't work too hard. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and stared at the photos on my laptop screen. Technical difficulties. That was one way to describe adultery. I opened a new browser window and found the contact information for Graham and Associates. Victoria's direct email was listed right there on the company website. I started typing. Dear Mrs. Castellano, you don't know me, but I think we need to talk. It concerns our spouses and some troubling behavior I've recently discovered. I have photographic evidence that I believe you should see. If you're interested in learning the truth about your husband's recent client meetings, please call me at the number below. Sincerely, Dr. Simon Arden. I attached the clearest photo, Derek and Marta entering the hotel, and hit send. Then I poured myself a scotch and waited for my marriage to explode. Victoria called at 7 a.m. the next morning. Dr. Arden? This is Victoria Castellano. I got your email. Her voice was steady, controlled, not what I'd expected. "Mrs. Castellano, thank you for calling. I think we should meet. Are you free this morning?" We met at the same diner where I'd hired Marcus. Victoria was a striking woman in her early 40s, with auburn hair and intelligent green eyes. She wore a tailored business suit and carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd built a successful company from scratch. "Show me everything," she said without preamble. I slid the manila envelope across the table. She opened it and studied each photo carefully, her expression never changing. When she finished, she closed the envelope and looked at me directly. "How long have you known?" "3 days, you?" "I suspected for about 6 weeks. Derek's been staying late at the office, taking mysterious phone calls, buying new clothes." She paused. "And our bedroom has been less active recently. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm actually relieved to have confirmation." She leaned back in her chair. "What do you want to do about this?" "I'm not sure yet. What do you want to do?" Victoria smiled for the first time since sitting down wasn't a pleasant smile. "I want to destroy them both, professionally and personally." That's a strong reaction. Derek doesn't know this, but I've been planning to leave him for months. Our marriage has been over for years. The only thing keeping us together was the business. She tapped the envelope. "This just gives me the leverage I need to take everything. Everything. The company, the client list, the office lease, our joint assets. Derek may be the face of Graham and Associates, but I'm the one who handles the books. And I know where all the bodies are buried." I leaned forward. "What kind of bodies?" "Tax irregularities, inflated expense reports. A few clients who were overcharged for services they never received." Victoria's smile grew wider. "Nothing criminal, but enough to ruin his reputation in the industry. And you have documentation?" "I have everything. Derek's not as smart as he thinks he is." We spent the next hour planning. Victoria would file for divorce and demand full control of the business. I would confront Marta with the evidence and offer her a choice: end the affair and work on our marriage, or face a very public and expensive divorce. But Marta didn't give me the chance. I came home that afternoon to find divorce papers taped to my front door. Marta's BMW was gone, along with most of her clothes and personal belongings. A note on the kitchen counter explained everything in her typically direct style. "Simon, I've filed for divorce. My lawyer will contact you soon. I'm staying with my sister until we can work out a custody arrangement. Don't try to contact me directly. All communication should go through our attorneys, Marta." I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. So much for giving her a choice. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Dr. Arden, this is Jennifer Walsh from Walsh, Patterson and Associates. I represent your wife in her divorce petition." That was fast. "Mrs. Arden wants to move quickly on this matter. We're requesting an emergency hearing for temporary custody and spousal support." "On what grounds?" "Mental instability and erratic behavior. Mrs. Arden is concerned for her safety and the safety of your children." I almost laughed. Mental instability? She's documented several incidents of threatening behavior, including property destruction and stalking. The wine glass I'd thrown against the wall, following her to the hotel. Marta was building a case, painting me as the unstable spouse while she played the victim. "When's the hearing?" "Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Judge Richardson's courtroom. You'll want to bring legal representation." The line went dead. I sat in my empty kitchen and tried to process what had just happened. In the span of 6 hours, I'd gone from planning a confrontation to being served with divorce papers and facing an emergency custody hearing. Marta was smarter than I'd given her credit for. She'd anticipated my discovery of the affair and prepared a preemptive strike. Now I was playing defense instead of offense. I called my lawyer, David Kim, and explained the situation. "Simon, this is bad. If she can convince the judge that you're unstable, you could lose custody of the kids and end up paying alimony while she moves in with her boyfriend. What do I need to do? Bring everything you have on the affair. Photos, receipts, phone records. We need to show that she's the one who destroyed the marriage, not you." "Will that be enough?" "Depends on the judge. Richardson is old school, doesn't like cheating spouses. But he also doesn't like men who lose their temper and throw things." That night, I called both Ross and Amelia. Ross was at college in Wisconsin, finishing his junior year. Amelia had just graduated high school and was working at a local bookstore while deciding on colleges. "Dad, what's going on?" Amelia asked. Mom called and said you guys are getting divorced. It's complicated, sweetheart. Your mother and I have some issues to work out. She said you've been acting strange lately, paranoid and angry. I closed my eyes. Marta was already working on the kids, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state. Amelia, has your mother seemed different to you recently, working late more often, maybe? I guess. She's been busy with that big client, Derek something. Derek Graham. Yeah, that's him, nice guy. He came by the house a few times when you were at the university. My blood pressure spiked. He was here, in our house, just for work stuff. They were going over presentations in your office. Your office? Where I'd found the wine glass with the burgundy lipstick. Amelia, I need you to know that whatever happens between your mother and me, it has nothing to do with you or Ross. I love you both more than anything. I know, Dad, but Mom's really scared. She thinks you might hurt her. I would never hurt your mother, or anyone else. Then why is she so scared? I didn't have a good answer for that. The next morning, I walked into Judge Richardson's courtroom wearing my best suit and carrying a briefcase full of evidence. Marta sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, looking composed and professional. She didn't make eye contact with me. The moment I walked into the courtroom, my ex-wife laughed under her breath, and her new husband shook his head. The judge went pale, his hand trembled, and he whispered, "Dear God, is that really him?" Everyone turned to stare. They had no idea who I was until... Actually, that's not what happened at all. What really happened was much more mundane and infinitely more devastating. Judge Richardson was a thin, gray-haired man in his 60s who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He reviewed the papers quickly, then looked up at both legal teams. This is a request for emergency temporary custody and spousal support based on allegations of mental instability and threatening behavior, Mrs. Walsh, present your case. Jennifer Walsh stood up and painted a picture of me as an increasingly unstable husband who'd become paranoid and violent. She presented photos of the broken wine glass in my office, along with Marta's testimony about my erratic behavior and wild accusations. Your Honor, Mrs. Arden fears for her safety. Dr. Arden has been following her, making unfounded accusations of infidelity and destroying property in fits of rage. She simply wants to protect herself and her children while they work through this difficult time. Then it was David's turn. Your Honor, Dr. Arden is a respected professor with no history of violence or mental illness. The reason for his recent behavior is simple. He discovered that his wife of 20 years has been having an affair with her business partner. David presented the photos Marcus had taken, along with the hotel receipts and phone records. He painted a picture of a betrayed husband who'd reacted emotionally to devastating news. Mrs. Arden is not the victim here, Your Honor. She's a cheating spouse who's trying to manipulate the system to avoid the consequences of her actions. Judge Richardson studied the evidence from both sides. The courtroom was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the scratch of the court reporter's fingers on her machine. Finally, the judge looked up. Mr. Kim, your client's evidence of adultery is compelling. However, that doesn't excuse destructive behavior or stalking. My heart sank. Mrs. Walsh, your client's claims of mental instability are not supported by any professional evaluation or documented history of violence. Jennifer Walsh shifted uncomfortably. Therefore, I'm denying the request for emergency custody. The children will remain with Mrs. Arden temporarily, but Dr. Arden will have supervised visitation rights pending a full custody evaluation. He paused and looked directly at me. Dr. Arden, I strongly recommend that you seek counseling to help you process the situation in a healthier manner. And I'm issuing a restraining order that prohibits you from contacting Mrs. Arden directly or coming within 500 feet of her residence or workplace. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. I'd lost. Not completely, but enough. Marta got temporary custody, temporary spousal support, and a restraining order that painted me as the dangerous party. The adultery evidence had prevented a total loss, but I was still the one walking out of that courtroom, looking like the bad guy. As I packed up my briefcase, I heard Marta whisper to her lawyer, "Phase 1 complete. Phase 1. This wasn't the end of her plan. It was just the beginning. The restraining order changed everything. I couldn't go to Marta's sister's house to see the kids. I couldn't call her directly. I couldn't even drive past her office without risking arrest. But Victoria Castellano had no such restrictions. We met again 3 days after the hearing, this time at our office. Graham and Associates occupied the top floor of a downtown high-rise, with floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture that screamed success. Derek's been in a panic since I filed for divorce, Victoria told me as we sat in her corner office. He knows I have access to all the financial records. What did you find? She opened a thick folder on her desk. 3 years of inflated billing, falsified expense reports, and tax irregularities. Nothing that would send him to prison, but enough to destroy his reputation and get him barred from the industry. And Marta? She's been helping him cover it up. Her signature is on half these documents. Victoria smiled coldly. Your wife isn't just an adulteress, Simon. She's also a co-conspirator in fraud. I studied the papers she showed me. Marta's handwriting on invoice modifications, her initials on expense reports that had been altered, her signature on tax documents that understated the company's actual income. This is enough to file criminal charges, I said. Or we could use it as leverage. Make them both disappear from our lives voluntarily. What do you have in mind? Victoria's plan was elegant in its simplicity. She would present Derek with a choice: resign from the company and dissolve their partnership quietly, or face criminal charges and professional ruin. Marta would get the same ultimatum. But first, we need to isolate them from their support network, Victoria explained. Derek's been telling everyone that I'm the crazy, jealous wife who can't accept that our marriage is over. Marta's been painting you as the unstable husband who's having a breakdown. How do we change that narrative? We tell the truth, publicly. That weekend, Victoria hosted a cocktail party at her downtown condo. She invited everyone from their professional circle, clients, competitors, industry journalists, and social media influencers. Derek and Marta weren't invited, but word would get back to them quickly. I arrived early to help Victoria set up. She'd prepared a PowerPoint presentation that laid out the entire story in devastating detail. Photos of Derek and Marta entering the hotel, copies of the fraudulent billing documents, a timeline showing how they'd been stealing from clients while conducting their affair. Are you sure about this? I asked as guests started arriving. Once we do this, there's no going back. I'm sure. Derek destroyed our marriage and our business partnership. Marta destroyed your family. They deserve whatever happens next. The presentation began at 8 p.m. Victoria stood in front of her living room fireplace, looking elegant and composed in a black cocktail dress. About 30 people were gathered around, wine glasses in hand, expecting some kind of business announcement. Thank you all for coming tonight. I wanted to share some important news about the future of Graham and Associates. She clicked to the first slide, a photo of Derek and Marta entering the Fairmont Hotel. As many of you know, my husband Derek and I have been business partners for 3 years. What you may not know is that Derek has been conducting an affair with one of our clients, Marta Arden, for the past several months. A murmur went through the crowd. Several people pulled out their phones and started recording. This affair has been conducted on company time, using company resources, and in some cases in our office after hours. She clicked to the next slide, copies of the fraudulent billing documents. But the personal betrayal is just the beginning. Derek and Mrs. Arden have also been collaborating on a scheme to defraud our clients through inflated billing and falsified expenses. The murmur became a buzz of shocked conversation. I saw several people texting furiously. Victoria spent the next 20 minutes methodically destroying Derek and Marta's reputations. She showed evidence of their affair, their fraud, and their attempts to cover everything up by painting their spouses as unstable. I'm dissolving Graham and Associates effective immediately, she concluded. I'll be starting a new company, Castellano Marketing, next month. Any clients who wish to continue working with an honest, ethical firm are welcome to join me. The room erupted in conversation. Several clients immediately approached Victoria to discuss transferring their accounts. Others were already posting updates to social media. By the time I left the party at midnight, somehow Grahamgate was trending on local Twitter, and Victoria had secured commitments from 12 of Derek's biggest clients. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m. the next morning. Simon, what the heck is going on? It was my friend Alan from the university. I'm seeing stuff online about Marta and some kind of fraud scandal. It's a long story. Is it true about the affair? Yes. Jesus, Simon, I'm sorry, I had no idea. Neither did I, until recently. What can I do to help? That was the question I'd been hoping to hear. For weeks, I'd felt isolated and defensive, fighting this battle alone, while Marta controlled the narrative. But Victoria's presentation had changed the dynamic. Now people were starting to see the truth. Just be a friend, I told Alan. That's all I need right now. Over the next few days, the story spread through our social circles like wildfire. The combination of adultery, fraud, and betrayal was irresistible gossip. Derek and Marta went from being seen as the victims of unstable spouses to being viewed as the villains who destroyed two families. Derek was forced to resign from the Chamber of Commerce. 3 more clients dropped him. The local business journal ran a story about the scandal that included quotes from Victoria's presentation. Marta fared even worse. Her sister kicked her out after seeing the evidence of fraud. Several of her friends stopped returning her calls. Even her own mother called to express disappointment in her behavior. But the real victory came when Jennifer Walsh, Marta's lawyer, called David Kim. "My client wants to discuss a settlement," she said. "The current situation has become untenable." "What kind of settlement?" David asked. "Mrs. Arden is willing to accept a no-fault divorce with joint custody and no spousal support." I almost laughed. 3 weeks ago, Marta had been demanding full custody and permanent alimony. Now she was offering to walk away with nothing. "What's the catch?" I asked David. "She wants you to stop the public campaign against her. No more presentations and no more social media posts, no more evidence sharing." "Deal." We met the next week to sign the settlement papers. Marta looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, weight loss, nervous energy. She couldn't make eye contact with me. "Where's Derek?" I asked as we sat down at the conference table. "He's taking some time to figure things out," she said quietly. "Victoria told me he's living in his car." Marta flinched. "This isn't how I wanted things to end, Simon." "How did you want them to end?" "I don't know. I made some bad choices." "Yes, you did." We signed the papers in silence. 20 years of marriage reduced to a stack of legal documents dividing our assets and establishing custody schedules. As we walked out of the lawyer's office, Marta turned to me one last time. "I hope you can forgive me someday." I looked at her for a long moment. The woman who'd shared my bed for 2 decades. The mother of my children. The person who'd betrayed everything we'd built together. "I already have," I said, "but I'll never trust you again." She nodded and walked away. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in October. I woke up that morning in my empty house, made coffee for one, and tried to figure out what my new life was supposed to look like. Ross called from college around noon. "Dad, Mom told me the papers were signed today." "That's right. Are you okay?" I considered the question. Was I okay? My marriage was over, my family was broken, my ex-wife had tried to destroy my reputation and take my children away. But I was still standing, still breathing, still fighting. "I'm okay, son. Better than okay, actually." "Good. Because I want you to know that Amelia and I never believed Mom's stories about you being unstable. We know who you really are." That phone call meant more to me than the divorce settlement and the custody agreement, or Victoria's successful destruction of Derek's career. My kids still believed in me. Amelia moved back in with me the following week. At 18, she was old enough to choose which parent she wanted to live with, and she chose me. "Mom's living in that tiny apartment above the nail salon," she explained as she unpacked her clothes in her old room. "She cries a lot and keeps talking about how everything went wrong. Do you feel sorry for her?" "Sometimes. But then I remember that she chose this. She chose Derek over our family." "People make mistakes, sweetheart." "This wasn't a mistake, Dad. Mistakes are accidental. Mom planned this whole thing." Amelia was right. The affair, the fraud, the attempt to paint me as unstable, none of it had been accidental. Marta had made a calculated decision to blow up our lives for a chance at something she thought would be better. The irony was that Derek had turned out to be a coward. When the scandal broke and his business collapsed, he'd abandoned Marta and fled to another state. Last I heard, he was working at a car dealership in Phoenix, trying to rebuild his life under a different name. Marta was left with nothing. No husband, no boyfriend, no business, no friends, and no money. The fraud investigation had frozen most of her assets, and she was facing potential criminal charges. But I wasn't done with her yet. The final confrontation came in December, 3 months after the divorce was finalized. Marta showed up at my house on a Saturday morning looking desperate and defeated. "Simon, I need to talk to you." I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. "What do you want, Marta?" "The prosecutor wants to file charges against me for the billing fraud. My lawyer says I could go to prison." "That's unfortunate. You could make this go away. Victoria told me you have influence with the DA's office." It was true. I'd testified as an expert witness in dozens of cases over the years and had a good relationship with several prosecutors. Why would I help you? For the kids. They don't need to see their mother go to prison. I studied her face. She looked older, harder, worn down by months of consequences. The confident woman who'd walked out of our marriage had been replaced by someone desperate enough to beg her ex-husband for help. What's in it for me? What do you want? I'd been thinking about this moment for weeks, planning what I'd say if she came crawling back. The answer was simple. I want you to disappear. What? Leave town, move to another state, start over somewhere else. Don't come back for holidays or graduations or weddings. Don't call the kids unless it's an emergency. Just disappear from our lives. Marta's face crumpled. Simon, they're my children too. You should have thought about that before you decided Derek was more important than your family. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix 20 years of lies, Marta. Sorry doesn't undo the damage you did to Ross and Amelia. Sorry doesn't give me back the marriage I thought we had. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Please, I'll do anything. I just told you what I want. Disappear. And if I do, you'll talk to the prosecutor. I'll make sure the charges get reduced to a misdemeanor with probation. No prison time. She wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. How do I know you'll keep your word? Because unlike you, I don't break my promises. Marta left that afternoon. She packed her few remaining belongings into her car and drove west, toward whatever life she could build from the ashes of the one she'd destroyed. I never saw her again. 2 years later, I was living a completely different life. The house was quieter but happier. Amelia had started college at Northwestern, living at home and commuting to campus. Ross visited regularly, bringing girlfriends and stories about his internship at a Chicago law firm. I'd been promoted to department chair and was working on a book about forensic evidence in domestic cases. My publisher was excited about the project, especially after I'd agreed to include some details from my own divorce as case studies. Victoria and I had become close friends. Her new company was thriving, and she'd started dating a federal judge who appreciated her intelligence and business acumen. We met for coffee once a month to catch up and laugh about how far we'd both come since that terrible night when we'd discovered our spouse's betrayal. Any word from Marta? She asked during one of our meetings. Christmas card last year, postmarked from Seattle. She's working as a receptionist at a dental office. And Derek? Still in Phoenix as far as I know. Amelia found his Facebook page a few months ago. He's selling used cars and living in a studio apartment. Victoria shook her head. Hard to believe they gave up everything for a few months of sneaking around hotel rooms. People make stupid choices when they think they're in love. Were they in love, or was it just the excitement of the affair? I'd thought about that question many times. Had Marta actually loved Derek, or had she just been drawn to the thrill of deception? Did it matter? I think they loved the idea of each other, I said finally. The fantasy was better than the reality. It always is. That conversation happened on a Thursday in March. The following Saturday night, my quiet new life was interrupted by a phone call from the police. Dr. Arden, this is Officer Martinez with the Chicago PD. We have a Derek Graham in custody who says he needs to speak with you. My blood went cold. Derek Graham? What's he doing in Chicago? He was arrested for breaking and entering at your address. Your neighbor called it in around midnight. I looked at the clock. It was 2:17 a.m. Is he still there? No, we have him at the station. But we need you to come down and tell us if anything was stolen or damaged. I threw on clothes and drove to my house first. 2 police cars were parked in my driveway, their red and blue lights painting the neighborhood in alternating colors. Officer Martinez met me at the front door. Looks like he broke in through the back patio door, she explained as we walked through the house. Your neighbor saw flashlights moving around inside and called it in. Nothing appeared to be missing. Derek had been in my office, going through my desk drawers and filing cabinets, but he hadn't taken anything valuable. What was he looking for? Officer Martinez asked. I had a pretty good idea. The evidence from our divorce case was stored in a fireproof safe in my office closet. Photos, documents, financial records, everything that had destroyed his career and reputation. Probably trying to find evidence from our divorce proceedings, I told her. Your divorce? He was having an affair with my ex-wife. It got complicated. We finished the walkthrough and drove to the police station. Derek was sitting in an interview room, looking nothing like the confident businessman I remembered. His hair was longer and unkempt, His clothes wrinkled and cheap. He'd lost weight and gained lines around his eyes. Simon. He stood up when I entered the room. Thank you for coming. What are you doing here, Derek? I need those files, the ones Victoria used to destroy my business. Why? I'm trying to start over. But every time I apply for a job, they Google my name and find stories about the scandal. I need to make it go away. I sat down across from him. The internet doesn't work that way, Derek. You can't just delete your past. I can try if I can prove that the evidence was fabricated or taken out of context. It wasn't fabricated. You stole from your clients and had an affair with my wife. Derek's composure cracked. Do you have any idea what the last 2 years have been like for me? I lost everything. My business, my marriage, my reputation, my friends. I'm living in a crap-hole apartment and selling cars to people who treat me like garbage. Good. Good? Derek's voice rose. You destroyed my life over a mistake. A mistake? You had an affair with my wife for months. You helped her try to paint me as mentally unstable so she could take my kids away from me. You committed fraud and tried to cover it up. That wasn't a mistake, Derek. That was a choice. She seduced me. Marta came on to me, not the other way around. I almost laughed. Even now, you're trying to blame someone else. Derek slumped back in his chair. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you and your kids. I'm sorry I ruined my marriage. I'm sorry I made bad choices. Does that make you feel better? Actually, it does. We sat in silence for a moment. Derek looked broken, defeated, hollowed out by 2 years of consequences. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a larger part of me remembered the arrogant man who'd whispered sweet nothings to my wife while she lied to my face. What happens now? Derek asked. Now you go back to Phoenix and figure out how to live with the choices you made, just like the rest of us. And the charges? That's up to the prosecutor, but I'm not going to ask them to go easy on you. Derek nodded slowly. I guess I deserve that. Yes, you do. Officer Martinez drove me home as the sun was coming up. The police cars were gone, and my neighborhood looked normal again, peaceful. I made coffee and sat in my office, looking at the patio door Derek had broken to get inside. The glass was shattered, but the frame was intact, repairable, like everything else in my life. My phone rang. It was Victoria. Simon, I just heard about Derek. Are you okay? I'm fine. He didn't hurt anything, just made a mess. What was he looking for? The past. He wanted to change the story, make it go away. Some stories don't have happy endings. No, they don't. But some stories have satisfying endings. Derek was charged with breaking and entering and sentenced to 6 months in county jail. Marta never came back to Chicago, even for his trial. She'd moved on, just like I'd asked her to. Ross graduated from law school and got a job with a prestigious firm in New York. Amelia finished her degree in journalism and took a position with the Chicago Tribune, covering local politics and corruption. Victoria married her federal judge in a small ceremony that I attended as her friend and witness. She asked me to give a toast at the reception. Victoria taught me that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can also be the best thing, I said, raising my glass to the happy couple. When the walls of your old life fall down, you get the chance to build something better. The applause was warm and genuine. Later, as I drove home through the city I'd learned to love again, I thought about walls and foundations and the difference between destruction and renovation. Derek had tried to break into my house to steal back the evidence of his crimes. But the real evidence wasn't in any file cabinet or safe. It was written in the lives we'd all built from the ruins of our old ones. I'd lost a cheating wife and gained a peaceful home. Victoria had lost a dishonest husband and gained a loving marriage. Derek had lost everything and gained, well, maybe he'd gained some perspective during those 6 months in jail. Maybe he'd learned that actions have consequences, and some mistakes can't be undone. Or maybe he was still selling cars in Phoenix, blaming everyone else for his problems. Either way, it wasn't my concern anymore. I pulled into my driveway and looked up at my house. The patio door had been repaired, stronger than before. The lights were on in Amelia's room, where she was probably working on another story that would hold someone accountable for their actions. This was my life now. Quiet, honest, built on solid ground. The walls had fallen, but what I'd built in their place was better than what came before.